Welcome to another episode of the Patriot Network TV, and this episode is going to deal with several important issues, but first I want to talk to you about optimism. I want to talk to you about first principles. The underlying beauty of being conservative in your approach is that you are innately optimistic. Capitalism itself is a faith-based system. You invest money today in the belief, and the belief is based on not only statistical patterns and historic data, but it's based on faith that systematically free people working together for the mutual benefit of each other, that's what a marketplace is, buyers and sellers freely coming together, and when they exchange a good or a service for the money, they say thank you. Both parties say thank you because they're both better off. Being a conservative, being a capitalist, forces you by habit and by core belief to be basically optimistic. So I've gotten emails and calls from friends who are very upset over the healthcare vote, the so-called healthcare vote. And I have said to all of them, and I sent out a mass email to all my friends saying, look, be of bold heart and good cheer. Don't let this get you down, because these programs always fail. And if you look at seriously and realistically, factually, quantitatively look at Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, they are failures. And the programs not only have failed in and of themselves, i.e. they're bankrupt, but they are causing huge societal problems. If you look at Social Security, the political will to reform Social Security is non-existent. There's a huge political impulse on the left end of the spectrum to add to entitlements, but there's no political will to tax to pay for them. And what we're going to run smack into is the reality of the checkbook, and the checkbook is empty. Social Security, for the first time since it was quote-unquote fixed back in the 80s, when Bob Dole was called the tax collector for the welfare state by Newt Gingrich, when they massively increased the Social Security, the FICA, and the Medicare taxes, they basically provided for solvency until the retirement of the baby boomers. Well, guess what? The baby boomers are retiring. And if you look at Social Security, if you look at Medicare, if you look at Medicaid from a cost-benefit standpoint, they're bankrupting not only the programs, they're bankrupting the country. And this new healthcare entitlement, this new entitlement that, by the way, a year from now, everyone will have to admit that it is not going to reduce the deficit. The original deficit reduction number of 138 billion or 142 billion, the federal government's spending that in deficit spending in a month right now. The budget that Obama just sent down to Congress has a $1.6 trillion deficit. We'll divide 1.6 by 12 months. It's more than 100 billion a month. The entire savings, proposed savings, alleged savings, invented savings of this bill over a decade don't amount to what's being spent on the deficit in 2 months. So big deal, we don't care. The underlying reality is that this is going to shine a light. It's going to focus 80 million baby boomers on the fact that the Congress of the United States stole their retirement money and spent it on a series of programs that were misguided at best and at worst outright corrupt, just attempts to buy votes. So intrinsically and inherently, I want to urge you to be of bold heart and good cheer, even though, or especially because of the way the bill was passed, this is going to sour the American people, the general public, on this bill. And you have to keep in mind that the essential characteristic of democracy in the United States, of our republic form of democracy, is that the moral right to govern comes directly from the consent of the governed. Well, the Obama formula now is clear. 51% of the people in the House of Representatives and somewhere between 33 and 40% of the American public. That's not sustainable. And you have to be absolutely thrilled by the fact that every alternative source of information, talk radio, Patriot Network TV, all of the alternative sources of information drove the healthcare debate. And it went from 70% of people saying they favored it to 70% of people saying they opposed it. We the citizens who seek out information and act on information, who understand the numbers, are going to drive this debate. No longer can the lamestream media, as Bernie Goldberg would say, the slobbering love affair with Obama, no longer do they get to frame these issues. Individual American citizens, through access to YouTube, the internet, and other means, are going to drive these issues. And I think that it is absolutely intrinsically exciting to realize that as citizens, we all have a much bigger responsibility, we have a much bigger role, and we can have a much bigger impact. So be not discouraged, be of bold heart, be of good cheer. We are going to carry forward our message of individual reliance, liberty, and small government. And we're going to carry that forward from now until this November. That'll be the first chance we get. And we will do it again every opportunity we get to vote. Now, I want you to consider for a second what should motivate you. Now, you should be motivated, and I always urge people to be motivated by a positive agenda. You should be able to read the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, the mission statement, operating manual of the United States, and easily see why this kind of usurpment, this absolute theft of your individual liberty through massive government programs is unconstitutional. It ought to be obvious. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among those life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Ordering me to buy health insurance, fining me if I don't, or putting me in prison if I don't, doesn't conform to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So it ought to be instantly obvious from a principled standpoint why we would object to this. But beyond that, let's start talking about the numbers. We always, the numbers are a funny thing. The facts and the numbers always come back to haunt these people. So if we look at what's happening, and you got to look at this big picture, the Bush tax cuts are going to be allowed to expire. Convenient way of raising taxes. What we're going to go back to is the Clinton era tax rates. Couple that with massive tax increases on the part of the states trying to balance their budgets, and you're going to look at, by the time you add in the bump for the medical care, for the so-called medical reform bill, the insurance reform bill, however you want to refer to it, HB 3200, what the total impact is in terms of taxes, you're talking about income taxes that are going to bite between 65 and 70% of income for high-end earners. Now, how long is it going to take for well-educated entrepreneurial folks to realize that their marginal bite is up between 60 and 70%? One of the reasons to be so overwhelmingly positive about how this is going to bring change is the fact that it's going to be rational. People are going to look at the decrease in their take-home pay and the loss of happiness, the loss of liberty, the loss of freedom, and greater intrusion by the government into their lives, and they're going to say, we don't like this. So be a bold heart, be a good cheer, don't let this get you down. Time for my favorite phrase in Latin, illegitim non carborundum. Don't let the bastards get you down. So get out there, live free, stand tall, be in favor of your principles. We'll talk to you soon.